Word training has two linguistic roots, obviously, one of which is the Hebrew root, one of which is the Greek root. One of the principles that we teach in Philadelphia Fellowship is that the authors of the Messianic Scriptures were almost invariably Hebrew thinkers. And so the underlying meaning of words that they used that we have come to us even in Greek are likely to be close to the meaning in Hebrew of the corresponding word in the Tanakh. Okay, so you don't go looking, in other words, you don't take the Greek and you go running off to Plato or somebody like that in order to find it. You take the translation from the Septuagint, okay, from Hebrew to Greek, you go back to the Hebrew, and that's where you're going to find the linguistic root of the Greek. Okay, so we have a long quotation that we begin with, which I think I'm just going to read because it's so, I don't know, every word of it is so informative. From Ibrim, chapter 12, from verses 5 to 11. And you have forgotten the appeal which speaks to you as sons. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahweh, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For whom Yahweh loves, he disciplines, and flogs every son whom he receives. If you endure discipline, Elohim is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom a father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become sharers, then you are illegitimate and not sons. Moreover, we indeed had fathers of our flesh disciplining us, and we paid them respect. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they indeed disciplined us for a few days, as seemed best to them, but he does it for our profit, so that we might share his apartness. And indeed, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but grievous. But afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Now, there's a number of things in here that are really important to get clear about. One of the things, just as a starter, is that scriptural language uses contrasts which, in the world of literal mathematical thinking, actually appear as contradictions. But that is not what they're intended. Okay, so for example, it says, but if you are without discipline, of which all have become sharers. Well, if all have become sharers, then how can you be without it? Because it just said all have become sharers. Okay, of course, what the meaning of that is that all true sons and daughters have become sharers. So if you're not a sharer, then you're not one of them. Okay. Now, in so many places in Scripture, you have to ask and answer these questions to get the detail that's left out of the literal language. Okay. So you can't just read it and say, well, there it is. You have to understand that they are free to assume that you know what they're talking about. Okay. Because they're speaking to people who they have some information about, that you are sons and daughters, you are familiar with their teachings, and so they don't have to say everything. So sometimes you have to fill in the blanks yourself. One of the most important things about this, okay, it says, for they, in verse 10, for they indeed disciplined us for a few days as seemed best to them. That statement there is kind. Okay, there are bad fathers who actually don't do things because they think they're best for the children. Okay? But he's just speaking of even good fathers, even the best fathers, doing their very best fall short of what it is that Yahweh accomplishes with his discipline. Okay, so again, literally, he's not approving of everything every father does. Okay, obviously, there are abusers. I mean, there are murderers, goodness. There are fathers who do horrible things. So he's not approving all that. He's just speaking of the good ones. But he does it for our profit